Hello, my name is Ray Hughes, and I'm an interviewer for the Veterans History Project, conducted by the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and locally administered by Brian Powers, who is our cameraman today, at the Cincinnati Hamilton County Public Library at 9th and Walnut in Cincinnati, Ohio. And today's date is the 5th of February, 2020, a Wednesday, and we have the honor and privilege today of interviewing Samuel Leavell Finley,
Yes.
a veteran of the United States Air Force. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Same here.
And,
Yes.
what do you prefer to be called?
Say
Sam?
Sam is good.
Sam or Samuel?
Sam is good.
Samuel?
Sam.
Sam? Okay. Sam, if you would, tell us the date of your birth and where you were born.
I was born February 9th, 1944, Cincinnati, Ohio, Old Catherine Booth Hospital in Avondale.
Catherine Booth Hospital?
Yes.
I see. And what were your mother and father's names?
My father's name was Samuel L. Finley, Sr. My mother was Geneva Buttram Finley.
And her maiden name was Buttram?
Buttram, yes.
I see. And did you have any brothers and sisters?
None. I was a birth that somewhat prevented my mother from having children, further from me.
I see.
I was the only child, yes.
I see. Were you spoiled?
Somewhat, yes. My dad spoiled me. Yes, he did.
Your father, what did he do for a living?
He at first was a cement mason or cement finisher. Then he ground cylinder heads out of Wright's Aeronautical, which is now GE. That's where he got drafted into the service during World War II.
And did your mother have a job outside the house?
Yes, she did. She was domestic, and she was a insurance agent later on. And then she went back to being a housewife, yes.
An insurance agent for whom, do you remember?
Oh, goodness, you would do that to me. It's a company out of Atlanta. I do remember that. But it was one of the earlier insurance companies in Cincinnati area, yes.
She was a debit collector, or so to speak, or
No,
a salesperson?
She was just to give people insurance, to let them know about the powers of insurance and the fact that you need insurance, because like most people that we knew back in those days weren't trusting anybody with their money. So she insured them that when they had time for burials or funerals, they would be covered and they have something in inheritance afterwards.
Yes, yeah. And was your father from Cincinnati, Ohio?
No, mother and dad lived in a little town called Harriman, Tennessee, right west of Knoxville, Tennessee. And they were just about grew up next door to one another. So they knew one another back in the day, yes.
And they went to school together down there?
Yes.
Did you know your grandparents, Sam?
Yes, I did.
On your
I
father's
knew Edward
side?
and I knew Annabelle, yes, very well.
That would be Edward Finley?
Buttram, that was Buttram. I never got to see my dad's mother and father, but I knew they were Richard Lee Finley and Lydia Lee Finley, yes.
Okay. And the Buttrams, you knew them? What were their full names?
Edward James Buttram and Annabelle Buttram. And that's as far as I could know in the city of Harriman, Tennessee. But throughout that area of Tennessee, there was Buttrams all the way down to Dayton, Tennessee, that I never got to meet, but there's quite a few, and the same with Finley's. And our family was, goodness, we had a lot of Gallaghers in our family on the east side. And how this happened, my Aunt Anna married a Gallagher, and so did my dad's sister, Jessie, married a Gallagher. So we were all intertwined, with, with the families like that. So we had big family reunions where we go down to Tennessee, yes.
I see. So you went down and got well acquainted with your aunt?
And the whole clan, yes.
Yeah, the whole clan, so to speak. What other jobs did your father have besides a cement finisher and a cylinder head?
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, so he when he passed in 1968, that was his last job, cement finisher, yes.
Now, did you tell me they worked on Union Terminal, maybe?
Yes. Dad and three of my uncles came up in 1929, and they got a job at helping start building Union Terminal. And like I said before, they were making $18 a week. And they lived in an apartment building down on 6th Street. I think 6th near Ray Street, well, more or less where the expressway comes through. So they lived. So really didn't have to walk that far to the terminal where they had to work. Uncle Bob, Uncle Jack drove the dump trucks to help fill in the lake behind with its Union Terminal now.
There was a lake back there?
Yes, a real big lake. I think he called, but forget what he called, what lake it was. But when they filled the lake in so they could lay the tracks so the back of the terminal, they said water would spill over and fish would jump out of the water and people take the fish home and they had dinner for a long time. You know, so that was a big plus then. And they lived 2 blocks down from 6th Street Market, same like Finley Street Market. There was always competition, but you know, you walk in that building and you be hungry at first when you walk through there and all the stuff and you smell all the different foods and everything. You be filled that way, you know. Like I said, Dad would give me $5 to go buy groceries, and I'd spend 3 of them and bring $2 back. And that 2 bags of groceries. So that was my job back in younger days, you know.
Yeah. Where were you living at that time?
Oh, goodness. We lived 89 Chestnut Street out in Wyoming. And we get in the bus or we go over to Laughlin, Ohio and catch the streetcar down to 78 downtown. And you go catch, I think, in Union, the 10 that went over by 6th Street, down 6th Street, in area 2, the market. That's where we buy groceries during the week and then take them back home.
Oh, so you shopped all the way from Wyoming downtown?
Yes, and then they, around the corner from us at Springfield Pike in Chestnut, there was a Kroger store. And we go up there sometimes, you know. But if Mom wanted fresh meat, really fresh meat, we go down to the market.
And catch a streetcar back home?
And that was always fun, to catch the streetcar. And then I remember the trolley buses. And on Saturdays, kids would get on those streetcars and ride all day long for a quarter. You go downtown, you transfer and go out to Madisonville, go Western Hills.
You get a weekend pass.
Yes.
Yeah. And you could transfer. Yeah, all over the city.
That was a lot of fun. Then I had relatives that lived on Finley Street, 939 Finley Street, and we always catch the 16 downtown to where they live. And as soon as I go to my aunt's house, she called my mother and said, "He's here." And I go out and play until I got really tired and come back, she'd feed me and then, you know, give me a bath or whatever and put in the 16, send me back home that afternoon. Spend the day with my aunt.
Now, your father, did he work at the Union Terminal until it was completed? Or?
Yes.
And when was that completed?
1933.
So he worked there to 33, and then he went into regular construction work around the city? Any big companies he worked for locally?
Messer, oh goodness, Meyer Heck, and a few other companies he worked for. Yes, he was well known. He was pretty good. He was a pretty good job. He was more or less, after a while, he became the foreman of the job because they'd give the job to him and he would go and lay things out. And he was pretty decent with doing that, you know.
I see. Have you been into the Union Terminal very often?
Up until they closed Tower A. I used to go down quite a bit to go to Tower A because my hobby is trains. And I remember at one time there were 7 railroads that came into Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right.
And I used to watch the Jane Whitcomb ride them go down toward River Road and out that way and then up the hill through and West Greensburg that way over to Indianapolis, and then watch the Diplomat go down River Road and go out that way toward Seymour, Indiana, Route 50 to go to St. Louis.
Right.
And the highlight of my day was watching New York Central, and then the Pennsylvania would come into town, the L&N, the Southern, and the C&O would come. I used to love to watch these team engines come in. And the highlight of my day back in that part was my dad took me down to the roundhouse in Spring Grove, and I got to get up into a President Pacific engine from B&O, number 5303. I'll never forget it. Green and gold was painted. The wheels had gold striping and everything. You couldn't tell me I wasn't hooked on trains after that. So I really love trains.
That's been a hobby of yours ever since?
Yeah, ever since, yes.
Wow. That's fascinating. What schools did you go to, beginning with your grade school?
Grade school was Oak Avenue Elementary School, Then I went to Wyoming High School after then. And in my junior year, I decided I wanted to stay down in Tennessee and go to the high school there in Tennessee, which I did do at Rockwood, Tennessee, which is 16 miles away from Harriman, Tennessee. And I enjoyed that experience immensely because I got away from mom and dad. I had to get a job to pay my own way through. I stayed with my aunt, and I learned quite a bit.
What was your aunt's name you stayed with?
Her name was Lenny Basil. She married to Basil. She was my dad's baby sister. My dad and 4 sisters in the Finley family at that time, yes.
You have any problem leaving home? I mean, did your mother have anything or your dad have anything to say about
Mom
that?
didn't like it. Dad said, let him go and learn. And then I remember the conversation was, oh, he doesn't need to do all this. And my dad said, no, let him go and learn. He's going to learn something when he's away. He's not going to be able to come ask mom and dad for money for different things. But I did when I was going to work in a grocery store, making 75 cents an hour, so I did learn something that way. But then the other thing that I did learn was very important to me. I learned about racism because it was here in Cincinnati, but when I got to Tennessee, we passed 4 high schools just to get to the county African American school. But the friends I had within that community, I would never want to give up, because all the friends I had, we played baseball together, all different sports together. We lived next door to one another. And in 1964, they integrated all the schools all throughout the area because people said, we know everybody. And if you would ever go to Harriman, Tennessee for a funeral, all the community would come to the family and take care of that family, you know, as far as have somewhere for somebody to stay. And I learned a great deal about not having a hatred bone in my body, because everybody has something to give to someone else. No matter how they would, you know, you were treated or whatever, okay, fine. And I know in my Air Force days, only one time was ever called out of my name, and by the end of that day, I had a brand new friend because the young man understood what was going on with me and people. See, I love people immensely. That's why I give back now at the high school, at North Colosseum High School, because this one child can come and ask one question, and I would give them an answer. They would help them and go along their way. And just think, over the years, since I've been there 10 years now being a volunteer, and a child would come up to you, or a couple that were married, say, guess what, we listened to what you said back whatever year it was. And they went on to college, and they found out what I was talking about. I told them how college would be. I said, you make up your mind to gain your education. No one can take that away from you. But if you don't use your education, then you're going to school for nothing. And most of them, we found that out. And most of them have got some beautiful jobs. They come back and tell you where they are. I think the last couple I talked to were out in Arizona. And they use education there and doing quite well in Arizona. So that's my job now. Yeah, I've got to give back. I want to give back, and I will, as long as he gives me the breath to do so.
That brings up the next question then, before we get beyond high school, is what church did you folks belong to here in Cincinnati?
First one was Mount Zion Baptist Church. And the last minister I was under was a very famous young man, Otis Moss Jr., because he walked with Dr. King, Dr. Abernathy, Fred Shuttlesworth, and a few other gentlemen back in the day. And I met Dr. King in 1967, a year before he was assassinated. I met Mrs. King in 1961. She came out and spoke for Women's Day at Mount Zion Baptist Church.
Where's Mount Zion located?
That was on Wayne Avenue in Laughlin.
Sure.
Now it's out in Woodlawn, I think that's Woodlawn Boulevard now.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Near the Armory, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. I go by it on weekends. After, did you physically met Dr. King?
Yes.
Shook his hand?
I shook his hand, and my mouth was like the floor. You couldn't even open it because I was so awed at the fact of what I knew about him meant so much to me. Because in the year 1963, I was at Knoxville College.
Where?
Knoxville College. And that's when the tragedy happened at the church in Birmingham.
Right.
And I met some of the relatives and were my school classmates at Knoxville. And you know, that's another teaching thing, you know. Many days when I was coaching football, middle school out at Winton Woods, and the guys that failed at a play, I said, that play's over, it's time to go to the next play. And it's my philosophy, okay, don't be stuck and go, because the longer you stay stuck and go, the deeper you go into the ground. But if you go and learn from the mistake you just made, you can keep on going and get better. Next time you come to meet that obstacle. And I always kept that, you know, okay, keep on going, you know.
Yes. So after high school, you went to Knoxville College?
Mm-hmm.
I see. And what years were you there?
From 1963 to 1966. In 1966, after I got drafted in 1966, I didn't pass the physical because of that cracked kneecap. And then I went for GE, worked for GE 4 years.
How long?
4 years, 1966 to 1970. And in the program, I worked on J79 engines, the procurement clerk for J79 engines, and procurement clerk for the TF-39, so it's part of the C5 Galaxy. And it's amazing.
C5 is now our biggest cargo, if I would
Yes, it is for the
down.
United States, yes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing in my Air Force life, 3 times I've flown on C5s.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, but after GE, I worked at CG&E, and in 1975 I got a challenge. A young man said, I bet you $100 you couldn't go into service and do well. So I went down and got sworn in October 16, 1975, went to basic training in 1976, January, and I stayed with base training to Biloxi, Mississippi, the Tech School, the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina Air Force Base, and my first duty station.
So you had been turned down to go into service in 1966.
66. Mm-hmm.
Because you had a cracked
Kneecap.
patella.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go down in 1975 and they take you.
Fast.
Yeah. Did they know anything about your knee then when they took you?
They checked my knee again because the records follow you. I said, let's see about that knee, and I was in good shape. Short story behind that, I played semi-pro football for 5 years, so I was in good shape when I went into service.
I was going to get to that, yeah.
Yes. Basic training to me was like another day of school, and we learned quite a bit, discipline in the service, how to do an Air Force job, how to make friends very well. You know, because like I said, this guy might be the guy that saves your life. Why would you hate him? And then we finished an honor flight. Honor flight was, we had 48 gentlemen starting our class, 36 graduated. Anywhere from 30 gentlemen on up to 48 when you can go in and make an honor flight, and we did. In fact, I was in first line of marching. We went to parade, the annual parade for graduation. And when I went to Biloxi, Mississippi, I was called out because we heard about you at Lacken Air Force Base. We want you in line to take one of the gentlemen was retiring from the Air Force at the time. And I felt proud because I was able to lead the guys in that marching. You know,
How tall were you in those days?
I was 6'3", 6 foot, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're still a big man, so
Yes.
I knew.
Mm-hmm. So I had the peripheral vision I learned playing basketball. I could see the guys out of the corner, and I could say something, and no one else would hear me say it, and they'd get in step. We had one guy, his name was Sears, and Sears would never want to be in step. I said, Sears, don't do it. Sears, don't do it. He gets his step and stay right in step. And we had a good time. I think he lives in Washington State now. But every now and then I hear from him. I hear from a lot of the guys in the service I've met, you know, oh, what are you doing now? And first thing, oh, here he comes again. He's going to get things together. I said, yeah, we all get things together so we can get our job done, yes.
So you went to basic training at Lackland.
Mm-hmm.
And in 75, how long of a course was that?
7 weeks.
7 weeks. And did you still do bivouac down there where you had a march and stayed outdoors?
Yes.
And still had the rifle range too? And the old concrete building?
Yes, yes.
I went through Lackland also.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I tell you, the fun part was when we did the confidence course, we called it.
Right.
And our group finished first out of the 6 groups that went that day. And then they would, remember the first obstacle when you had to get on the rope or the wire and go across the lake? And all the tall guys would get on either side, a real short guy. And we told the guy, you better not make that rope. You better catch it and go. And by the time we said something, he would across the lake. And then from there, we had fun doing everything. You know, went to the rifle range the following week, and we all qualified for rifles. And then we got to our graduation parade, and then everybody got their assignments.
And then from Lackland, you went to Biloxi?
Yes.
Now, what is Biloxi? Was that for
That was
tech
ATC school. That was, let's see what other schools were there. Like mine, AC&W school, aircraft control and warning school, and some of the other discipline schools. I'm trying to think of other schools. Some of the SPs went through there.
Okay, and what school did you go to down there?
I went through the radar school.
Tech school, I think.
Tech school, yes.
Radar school.
And we learned to write backwards on a big plexiglass screen, and when they would call different...
You could have made a real good weatherman on
thank
TV.
You.
That's
That was other school.
That's how Ira, what was his name, Ira from Cincinnati?
Fisher, Ira Fisher.
Yeah, he ended up making $1 million a year or something in New York, you know, because he learned
Wrote
that.
backwards.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you can look at the board from the back, and they go around the front and they see if you made a mistake, and everything was just right down the right. You remember to write backwards, and then you remember to put your different moves, 1, 2, 3. You start from red to yellow to green, and when it got to green, the third move, you wipe all that off because that target was gone. And then you direct airplanes, and they tell you how to direct airplanes to a target, and once they splash them, you either put a big splash in red and yellow, and that airplane was destroyed. And that played well with when I got to Blue Ash and I came back from Myrtle Beach. And we go out to the radar scope, and since everybody said go set the scopes up, you set all the scopes up. You had your communication with Indianapolis Center. You say Indianapolis Center, this is Sierra Foxtrot, this is Samuel Finley. And you do everything by the, I guess we call Greek alphabet, and told everybody what you were doing and said we want the R5503, 4 to 31,000 for this length of time, and they would give the area over to us. And if you go east of here, when you get to Claremont County and east to the river, that was our 5503, because really nothing out that way. Gravel pits, railroad bridges, a lot of farmland in the area, and that's where the jets will go out and do their maneuvers. Then we go away different places. We went to Florida twice, we went to New York twice, and we went Texas once and did the ACT and the BACT, the basic maneuvers and actual combat maneuvers. And the guy said, well, hey, you guys know what you're doing here. And for an AG unit, and it went on into when I went into reserves. And kept that same mentality. Get the guys in line so you can have an easy day all day long, you know.
So how long were you at Biloxi, and what was the name of that base?
That was Keesler Air Force Base.
Keesler? And
I was
Biloxi,
down there.
Mississippi, right?
Yes. I was down there 8 weeks. It was 1 week, about 1 week away for a class. Then we went into our class the second week we were there, and we went to all different things. You learned the different Beverly codes, all the different maneuvers, what the fighters would say to someone else, and you knew what they were talking about. That's where you got your intercept, and you got your different things when they did aerial refuelings, and when they did combat maneuvers, you knew exactly what they were doing, and you write all that down and record that.
We forgot to cover something I think I forgot to cover with you. When you were in high school and college, were you playing sports?
Yeah, football and Wyoming and basketball. I had the honor of being on Wyoming's football team in 1962, went undefeated, unscored upon. And in my 10th grade, I was a reserve basketball player. We were champions in our league. It's a Miami International League. It was all the schools out that way. You got Reading, Deer Park, Indian Hill, North College Hill, Mount Healthy, Wyoming, and Laughlin. Yes.
And you played semi-pro football, you said?
Yes. Defensive, offensive tackle.
I see. And what was the name of that team?
That was called KT's Panthers.
And where are they from?
Cincinnati area. Yeah.
KC's Panthers.
Yes. That was the Brenda Moore League. That was you could weigh 190 pounds when you got weighed in, but you could go 225 by end of the league. Yes. We had a lot of fun.
Not that it, did you ever know anybody by the name of Eddie Hill?
Does it sound familiar to me?
Played Canadian football in the 60s, early or late 50s rather. But that's just a side note. He's a Cincinnati, a local fellow. But so I wanted to cover the football aspect of it. And you had 8 weeks of training at Biloxi at Keesler Air Force Base, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And what rank are you then at that time?
Airman first.
Airman first?
Yes.
Now that's 3 stripes then.
1 stripe, mosquito wings, 1 stripe and a star in the middle.
Oh, they changed that, didn't they? Yeah, okay.
And you went to Senior Airman, which was a 3 stripes, no star in the middle. And you went to Sergeant, which is a stripe with a star in the middle.
Yeah. The ranking was different when I was in 56. But so explain, now you're going to radar school, correct?
Yes.
And I know you covered it somewhat there, but what's your job? Is it when the airplanes take off, or while they're in the air? Or
when the airplanes are in the air and they come to we had 5 points to enter our restricted area. And they'll come in, say, from Springfield. This is Sabre 2-1. We had 4 aircraft. And on the radar scope, you see the little blip plus the hair, which is four bars, and that shows that is Sabre 2-1. And you mark it down in your book, Sabre 2-1 coming in .1. And until my controller says, I see them, and say, we accept you into the area. Then they would come in, and we use 2 radio frequencies. The other radio controller would say, I see him too. He would take over, and they take 2, and our guy would take 2. And they run combat maneuvers on one another, or they would hit like the bridge or railroad bridge. What's the old N&W ran out through there, going to Portsmouth. There's a number of trussels out through that way. So they would run a similar attack on the trussel and say bomb away and say, okay, destroy 1 bridge, you write that down. But before all that would happen, you go in the 61 van, warm up the scopes, get them started, get them within the area you want to control, talk to Indianapolis Center, tell them this is what's going to happen. We're going to take the area from this point to that point. And about 15 minutes before everybody has gone back to associated bases, we call Indianapolis Center, you can have the area back in 15 minutes and you sign off. But in the meantime, when the controller is watching his airplanes doing their maneuvers, you keep him apprised if something else is happening other than he's focused on 2 airplanes. One of the other guy's airplane may break loose and come to try to attack my airplanes. You warn them of that and say, okay, to your 3 o'clock was this side of the airplane. You got 1 bogey coming in 10 miles, and then one guy split off and go after him, and then the other one go after the main target he wanted to go after. But it's always, you keep your mind focused on who's coming to get your guys. And when their time to leave, you give them safe passage out back to the Air Force Base.
And you're monitoring this on the screen this whole time?
Yes.
That's very intensive, it appears to me.
Oh, you get so intense sometimes, you'll wonder how you can remember everybody coming from what direction. But if an airplane would come into an area and it's got a blip and no identifier next to it, you know, it's an enemy aircraft. And you call that out, you call it, in other words, I see an aircraft at Foxtrot Echo, 10 miles. On the Greenwich Mean Grid, you see that area, you know. And you come down and go over, Foxtrot comes over, Echo goes to the right. And you go up it's 20 miles and 20 miles, and they come together. That's the center of action. See, each time they come to that area, they turn on that area. He's 5 miles, he's 3 miles. When he gets 3 miles back in the day, that was a good missile shot.
Are you operating from a stationary building or from mobile?
A mobile building. It's stationary while we're at Blue Ash, and it's on rubber tires. And all they have to do is jack everything up in there and hook up the deuce and a half, and away you go. You know, you have to disconnect all the different cables and that.
Right.
Yeah, we'd have 10 miles of cable, it seemed like, to move from our Dash 8 power sources to the radio band and the radar band. And the other one goes to the radar antenna that's going around on the back of a truck. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you finished your training there at Biloxi, Mississippi, what's your MOS called?
It was 76030. 3 is trainee. 5 is almost a supervisor. 7 is a supervisor.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, 03, 05, and 07.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which.
And when you get to 09, you're just the chief master sergeant of the area, so you just monitor everything everybody's doing. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go from when you graduated from Biloxi?
From Biloxi, I got the dubious honor of going to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina Air Force Base, which when you flew an airplane into there, you go out over the ocean, then you come back and land at the base. And the radar station sits out from the base in the woods area, and they had a little hill with the radar antenna on. And when the guys in my class heard that, they got mad because most of them were going to mine out in North Dakota, or they were going to Montana, or they're going to Idaho, and 2 went to Alaska, and I was the only one got warm weather. So I said, who do you have pulled with? Who told you were going this? I said, I was coming here by assignment like you were, so I said, luck of the draw, you know.
What big city is near Myrtle Beach?
Myrtle Beach itself. Yes.
I've never been there. You know?
Oh, you would love there. It's right above Hilton Head, South Carolina. There's a lot of golf courses there. It's nothing but beach for about, I think, 30 miles of beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the main gate to the first beach is 1/2 mile. So when you went out of the base, at the end of the day, you can go right on the beach.
You're right there at the beach?
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And what squadron are you in then, or what Air Force are you in?
I was TAC, TAC, at the time. I don't remember the unit down in Myrtle Beach because we weren't really concerned about getting your training time in and then qualify you for coming back to the actual 124 TCF.
I see. Tactical Air Command.
Mm-hmm.
And how long were you there at Myrtle Beach?
I was there 6 months. 6 months.
6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And you graduated from tech school, so
Mm-hmm.
I guess you're just accelerating your training,
Mm-hmm.
your technical abilities while you're there.
Mm-hmm. And even when I got back to Blue Ash, it wasn't a year later, I was 2-striper, then 3-striper, and took a test for sergeant, which was in 1980, and then got that. Went to the staff in 1984, then I went from the Air National Guard to Reserve Unit in Wright-Patterson, 906.
So from Myrtle Beach, you've been there 6 months, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go?
Then I came back to Cincinnati and assigned to Blue Ash A&G Station, 124th Squadron, yes.
Now you're on active duty then.
Mm-hmm. But that time, then when I came back, I was in the Air National Guard. You start your 1 month and your 2-week summer camp, you know.
Right.
And then sometimes we do longer. You know, if something like you got deployed somewhere, some guys got 90 days overseas. I think some guys went to Kuwait and they came back. And I was about to go to Kuwait, and I went reassigned to the reserve unit in Wright-Patterson.
And that's the 906, did you say?
Yes, fighter group.
You showed here that you were at Desert Storm, Grenada, Grenada, and tell us about Desert Storm. What'd you get called from Cincinnati?
And I was at Homestead Air Force Base. And we were doing what's called hot pits. That's a jet coming in hot. Engine running. You put fuel on one side, they put ordnance on the other side. When you got the refueling, they put ordnance on the other side, the airplane go right back and go drop its ordnance. Got to see the stealth fighters during that period of time. A lot of F-15s, a lot of F-16s, and they would go, I'd go overseas to Arabia, where they were stationed. And then my other training was the C-130 Bladderbird. I got to do that twice. It's two 10,000-gallon fuel bladders inside of a C-130. He fills up with fuel, go over the area, dump your fuel, and come back, get another load, and do the same thing again.
So they're carrying, they have the regular fuel tanks, but they have bladders?
Yes.
10,000?
This is
and
for...
what are they flying that fuel overseas?
Yes.
For our gasoline tanks, so to speak?
Yeah, for our fuel depots overseas. The depot that's overseas had a number, 10 250-gallon bladders. And you take, I think, well, okay, so 25 trips, C-130s. We had a number of C-130s doing this to fill one bladder up. And they just go on until they filled all that up. And then you start all over again when the first tank, set of bladders start getting low,
Right. And how long were you down at Homestead?
Oh, goodness. The duration of Desert Storm was about 90 days. Yeah,
Okay.
the Desert Storm didn't take long.
Where's Homestead at?
It's near Miami, Florida.
South of Miami?
Southwest of Miami. I can go in toward Key West.
Uh-huh. And you were working on C-130s down
With
there?
C-130, yes. They would come in and say, oh, your time has changed because you were R-14 qualified, which is the bladders that you take off of a machine and set the bladders up and then fill them up with fuel.
Those were rubber bladders?
Yes, rubberized. The fun of that was getting on the C-130, and they, on purpose, they were full of water then. They put holes in them. So there's 8 different ways you can patch a hole. And the main way is to put a piece in the hole, turn it around, let it pancake like this, and then tie it down. Or get a bicycle patch. Hit it just right. And they had the stuff that you see on television that you spray on, put that patch on it, and it stopped the hole right there. Well, we were fortunate it never happened to us real, because JP Ford is at the time is not very nice to get on your skate. It will burn you.
You said the tanks had water in them. What do you mean?
For training.
Oh, okay.
And that was to see how you could adapt to a puncture or whatever, 'cause
Right.
inside of the C-140 is not like a metal floor. There's all kinds of devices on that floor so it can carry cargo.
Right.
So on purpose, they put something somewhere so it would pop open, and they said, there's your holder patch. And we did pass that course,
I see. And that was during Desert Storm. I see Grenada here.
Grenada was, 3 to 4 days, and they had us on alert, and we were on the base, and you sit there with your A and C bags, and if you had to go...
What's an A and C bag?
One bag was built like a square, and your duffel bag had all your uniforms in it. The A bag had all your equipment in, and the B bag was, like I said, duffel bag, and that's what you're ready. You'd have that ready at all times. No matter what, even if you're doing reserve duty the weekend, you brought those to Wright-Patterson because they would do the mobility exercises and then make sure they had all this stuff in there was on the list. You know, listed, had, 6 pair of underwear, 6 t-shirts, 6 pair of socks, 2 changes of boots, 3 uniforms, 1 overcoat, and your helmet, and your vest, Kevlar vest, yes.
Bulletproof or bullet resistant?
Yeah, it'll hit it, stick it, but it'll knock you over. It's like a punch. So we had we do that.
Did you go to Grenada?
I didn't go. They said I got the medal because I was on
Reagan is president now.
He got that over quickly, fast, and hurried. We didn't really have time to. We went up to Wright-Patterson, and the C-141B came in to take us to the undisclosed Air Force base, and we were getting ready to get on the airplane and said, "Sorry, okay, pack your stuff up and go home."
Yeah.
But our reserve unit was in the top 5 worldwide for readiness. We did operational readiness inspections, and my last 3 were excellent, excellent, and outstanding, because we were ready to do what we had to do. And yes, put the suit on for the chemical warfare. And we designed systems of how we can utilize fuel trucks. And instead of waiting a whole long time to get airplanes off the ground, we had them in stationed in different places along the runway. They can go right and do their jobs. And the inspector came in and he says, "No one else has ever done that." I said, "No, we thought that in our head to utilize. Okay, this is a simulated bunker. You know that bombs can penetrate a bunker. If they were to come, we move the vehicles out of the way.
Right. And you had chemical warfare suits. Explain those to us.
It is a charcoal-based suit that covers head to toe. It zips up the middle and closes over. And you had a mask with the hat underneath that. That covered everything up here. You had rubber gloves with the white gloves inside, the cloth gloves inside. That was strapped with tape. And that's why chemicals will not get to you. And they work, because we were going through the the concrete building with the sign up, we go in there and walk through that. And everybody walked through, came out, nobody had anything that would leak. Because when you leak, somebody start crying, they didn't have a good seal. The mask itself had to have a good seal around here, around your ears and your face, And that was, oh goodness. Always July of the year, that they come for their inspection, or June when it was good and hot, so to make sure you sweat it. And they got the newer suits after we went through that. The last time we had done a ORI, they had the newer suits. Because the charcoal suits, when you got out of them, you better go get a good shower. And you change the suits every day, because they would, you sweat that into you. It's amazing how well you can work with rubber gloves and the mask and speak. You just thought about what you had to do, what you had to say, what airplane you had to service, and go do it. And if a young man or a young lady was having trouble, say, loading bombs, you'd help them. Yes, you would help them. Any kind of ordinance or something to go along, say they would do the tricks of killing a computer card. And in the back of your head, you always remember where they went to and say, okay, 38, 61, 55, or whatever, change that one. Sure enough, got the airplane going. So you took interest in what you did the whole time. You had a mission. You had a said mission to get an airplane off the ground, get him to an area of battle, and hope he would come back. When he came back, if he was cold one, he was ready to go for the next battle. If one would come back and something wrong with it, get it right in the area, fix it, and get it ready to go. That was our thing. That's the main thing we did.
You keep mentioning Blue Ash. Were you stationed at Blue Ash sometimes?
That was our meeting place once a month. And when we deployed, we go to Blue Ash and get our, say, A and B bags and get ready to deploy. Most times you would get on a bus and go to Wright-Patterson. They have a cargo plane there and take you wherever you had to go.
And what are some of the places they deployed you to?
Oh goodness, I went to Eglin, Florida, Tyndall, Florida. Went to, what's that base in Arizona? Near Tucson. Went to Arizona for an exercise. Went out to Alameda, California for an exercise with the Navy. Went to Watertown, New York in the middle of winter where it never stopped snowing. And we worked with a device called a rubber duck. That's a half-moon, rubberized radar station. And they would put 3 of those together, or either 2. And they'd have the computerized radar systems in there, and you learn how to do the computerized radar system. It does the rest for you. If an airplane's coming in for attack, it would tell you.
What air base is up there at Watertown?
Fort Drum.
Fort Drum?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Army base. Mm-hmm. And see, we did that Army base. We did Fort Benning in Georgia for an exercise. Hunter Field in Georgia. Another Air Force Army base. One in Shreveport, Louisiana. One down that way. Polk.
Polk, yep.
Mm-hmm. Went down there, yes, for an exercise. And those who were fortunate enough got to go to Eglin Field, and you take you out in the middle of the field, blindfolds, a razor blade, a potato, and a compass. In 3 bends, see if they can get back within 3 days. And you live out in the wild.
That's 500,000 acres, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
500,000 acres?
Mm-hmm. It's 100 miles by, I think, 90 in that area where that is, in Eglin Field. And
Right off of Fort Walton Beach.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Doolittle Raiders took off, trained at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they turn you loose with a razor blade.
A potato and a compass, plus the equipment you had on.
And you was to find your way back to
Find your way
headquarters,
back,
or
yeah,
what?
find your way back to main base. Mm-hmm.
And how'd you do on that exercise?
I didn't get to go.
Oh.
The guys who went out there and came back, they said, well, they ate muskrat, they ate snake, they ate rattlesnake, and said, you know, they showed you how to, the deal shows you how to fix everything, you know,
Mm-hmm.
how to make a fire, you know, the sticks and so forth.
Sure.
Yeah, and the brush.
There's
We had to do that.
alligators
We had to
down
do
there,
that.
too.
We had to make a fire. Yes,
Yeah.
we had to make a fire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's alligators down there too, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, they showed us how to stay away from them, or if you saw one, like, so, how to trap him and cut him up and eat him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That,
And, most of the guys saw the snakes, the big rattlesnakes. They saw jackrabbits. They leave jackrabbits alone. They're little rabbits, they caught them. They caught muskrats, and I can say, something else they caught up. I forget. One guy caught a beaver and said leave him alone because they kept the environment safe.
Right.
Yeah, you know, for fish and so forth. And they caught fish. Mm-hmm.
and crawfish, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plenty of crawfish.
You'd be surprised, something you think you wouldn't eat. You'd be hungry, and you show what berries to eat, what not to eat. All that was out there. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do you go to Wright-Patterson?
We go once a month, the same as the A&G base. Usually the second week of the month you were going for duty, or the third week of the month you were going for duty, and you would do your Air Force job there. As a fuels management specialist, I had to count for a number of gallons of fuel that was used during that exercise, how many people, how many hours as far as on the flight line, and when I received fuel in one of the tanks, how many gallons was received, go to a computer and send that to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you handling jet fuel and regular aviation fuel?
Only thing that was odd was JP7, which is used for SR-71, and we used that once.
And what was that,
JP7.
JP7?
Mm-hmm. Because the SR-71 uses a ramjet that goes into a regular jet motor and gets the propulsion.
No, they're not flying that SR-71.
No, politically speaking, they killed that airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing, maintenance. Because when they came back and landed, you was put all the buckets you can to get start leaking. all the seals would break.
Yeah.
It's so brittle. See, 3 times in my lifetime I had watched him go through a radar scope across the area. Our radar scope is 500 miles, the whole sweep.
Right.
And he was gone in a half a sweep, going through the area. The last one I did, he came from Arizona, he's going to New York City, then come back in, going back over there. In 1 hour and 6 minutes, he flew from Arizona to New York City. So when he came, in the radar scope, you're watching the left edge and you see this, and you watch the radar sweep as it goes around. It never got back up. At 8 seconds, he was through that area.
Wow. Yeah. Well, they never could shoot one down because they couldn't, their artillery wasn't fast enough.
The
Or high
MiGs would
enough.
go up, they could get up to their altitude, but the missiles couldn't track. They could track so far and they just dropped because of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing part of some of the things I knew about that. And
You were stayed in the reserves, Air National Guard or reserves? Is it-
Air National Guard is governed by the governor of the state. Air Reserve is the second team to the first active duty.
And you're in the reserves,
Mhm.
not the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And you stayed in the reserves until 1998?
Yes.
And then did you retire in 1998?
Yes, 23 years service.
And what rank were you, or are you
Tech
now?
Sergeant, E6.
E6, Tech
Mhm.
Sergeant?
Mm-hmm.
I see. Now, did you graduate from Knoxville?
No, I did not.
Would you
I
do
was a
three?
late, I went 3 years, I was a lazy student because I was playing sports. And Knoxville didn't play that, and a D would not get you a point. They went from A, B, C. C was the lowest amount of points. And I was like a D, C student. I was just going through the motions.
Right,
And had I known what I know now, I would have graduated from the school.
sure.
I was in the School of Business. But I can say when I went to work at GE in 1966, what little college I had helped secure the job I had at GE. Because I had to, all right, procurement clerk sounds like somebody that doesn't do anything. No, you account for the parts
Sure.
that goes to a jet engine. You gotta name them by memory. And when you walk up to a certain part of a jet engine, you gotta say, what goes into this? And you tell them that, And it's amazing go from your first fan blade, the real big blade that turns around, into a compressor, to a high pressure turbine rotor, into the propulsion area, and watch the jet engine move, okay? And the C5 engine, the TF-39 engine, you could walk into a test cell, put your hand on the engine, and it just like a hum. You couldn't do that with J79 because there's too much action in a small engine like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The one, though, is a propeller aircraft, isn't it? And the other one, the J-79 is a jet-
J79 went to Air Force.
Right.
All right, the C5 seems like it's a big propeller, but it is not. It's like the big fan blades
Yeah.
that go around
Yeah.
and direct the air into a compressor.
Right.
And it compresses to 3,800 degrees Fahrenheit, and it goes to high pressure turbine rotor, which the fuel comes out of, is spinning around, and it causes jet air
Yeah,
propulsion.
I'm sorry.
Mhm, you're fine, you're fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did you work at General Electric?
4 years.
4 years?
Mm-hmm.
And why'd you leave there and where'd you go?
I was asked, and I'll say this boldly, to tell on people. If you saw somebody wasn't doing their jobs correctly or fuzzing on their jobs, they want names of people. I said, no, I couldn't do that. And I got laid off in I think it was April 1970. And the guy said, you could have been there for a number of years if you just start, no. Here's my philosophy behind that. If you tell on somebody about something they're not doing correct and you know they're not doing this correctly, that person will give your name and not his if they got fired. Well, he's the one that said you were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't live with myself with that,
Right.
But a lot of people did. They did their job, and some people got really, I've known some incidents that happened out in the parking lot people got hurt behind that, you know.
Yeah.
That's somebody's livelihood. In other words, if you go up to tell the person, hey, come on, they're watching you.
Right.
Get yourself together and you have a job. And a lot of people out there work. I know one gentleman worked there I knew is Wilbur Keller, worked there 44 years because he did his job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do, yes.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go from there?
From there, I was for about a year. I did nothing. Well, from April to January 1971, I went to work at CG&E. And I was in the we call construction and maintenance guys. This guys fix the gas leaks and put the poles in the ground and put transformers up on the poles and all that kind of
really?
stuff. Yeah, that was fun too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you climb poles?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He got used to doing that. It was just, it's like, you know, walking up steps, you know.
Yeah,
once you
tough job to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially when it's cold or raining and the wind's like, let's say up in New York like that right now, the wind, you know, like it's frozen and stuff, that's when it's dangerous, you know. Mm-hmm.
Now you worked there for CG&E here locally,
Mm-hmm.
and you were there a year,
No, I was there 7 years.
7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you leave them? What year?
May of 1978.
And why'd you leave them after 7 years?
Well, I wasn't getting promoted. I was being temporarily pushed up. But every time I would take the test, there's something else you learn about racial things. And I would miss by 2 points, 3 points, or something I did wasn't just right. But yet, the following week, they send you out temporary upgrade to carry a crew to do a job.
So you got a temporary upgrade,
Mm-hmm.
but not a permanent.
Not a permanent. To keep the numbers together. You know,
That's the black and white issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what year is that?
That was throughout my career with CG&E. You know, I found out the hard way. Oh, yeah, you know, you're good at doing that. Until you went into the classroom to perform it. You did the same way you did out in the field, but somebody said, oh, it wasn't good enough, or you passed 2 parts of the test, not the 3rd part. And I said, oh, we can't promote you. Well, like I said, the following week, send you right out to temporary. Yeah, you can do that. We know you can do that, you know. Mm-hmm. Brush up on this and take a test again, and the other 2 parts, you do pass those, and still always one part test you would not pass. And it would be like you needed a 70 to pass, you get a 68 or 69, something like that. I said, come on now, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah. And so I said, okay. So I just followed my heart, and I started driving tractor trailers for a year. 28 years I did that for 5 different companies.
Driving a tractor trailer?
Yeah, over the road. Mm-hmm.
Over the road?
Yes.
What route? How far did you have to go?
500-mile radius of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, 500 miles?
Mm-hmm. Or 500, whatever it is that you drive in 10 hours, you know. Mm-hmm.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And who were you hauling for?
My first branch, Spectre, then American Freight, then Preston, to Carolina, to Roadway. I retired from Roadway in 2004.
And were you a union driver?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I know Roadway didn't hire anybody but union men.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the other companies too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as long as you did your job at Roadway, they wouldn't nobody bother you, you know.
How did you get from being working for Cincinnati Gas and Electric and being so physical and climbing poles and stuff to driving a truck?
It's something I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A lot easier than climbing poles over
Mm-hmm.
there.
And some of the places I had to drive through, you wonder, why come you didn't stay back there? You know, well, it just, you know, you use your mind and your senses about what you were doing, you know. We had 2.4 million miles of safe driving.
2.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Were there 2 of you in the cab?
No.
Just
At one point, for about, one company I worked for 3 months, it was 2 of us. He'd go from Dayton, Ohio to Boston, Massachusetts, and came back. And I said, no, I can't do this. And I said, give me something, you know. So I went on the extra board time, you know, and drove the different routes, you know.
So you stayed within a 500-mile radius,
Mm-hmm.
10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you would drive and unload. Did you leave
Never
it?
unload. Just drive to a terminal to terminal. Someone else would unload, yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you come back with a trailer or?
Mm-hmm. A trailer or 2.
You hauled 2 trailers?
At times.
Oh my goodness. I don't see how they let them get away with that, to be honest.
Well, the idea of LTL freight, less than a truckload, and if you loaded, say, a 48-foot trailer, and you break the trailer down and load it and load to another trailer that goes somewhere else to, say, unload it in the said city. In other words, say, I would go to Chicago from Cincinnati, I'd go through Indianapolis. I'd freight for Indianapolis on one trailer, leave out there, pick up another trailer. It's got freight going to Chicago or Milwaukee, that way. That was the principle of the double trailers.
Okay.
A lot of times we go to St. Louis from Cincinnati, and you'd have freight going to St. Louis, some going on to Kansas City. Well, Kansas City would get another trailer from St. Louis, put those together and go to Kansas City with a double load, or, like I say, come back with double trailers. You go up to St. Louis to Kansas City, one going to Minneapolis.
And when did you, how long did you do that?
28 years altogether.
And when did you retire from that?
2004.
2004. Now, you're married?
Yes.
And your wife's name?
Evelyn.
And her maiden name?
Was Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
And how did you meet Evelyn?
After my second wife and I divorced, I was in Winton Woods Park doing some Bible study, and Evelyn would walk the trail. And one day I said, I need to talk to her. So one day we happened to sit down and talk for a couple hours, found out we had a lot in common. And during that period of time, we courted for a couple of years. 1 year we didn't even see each other because she said what we were doing was wrong. Through the Bible, my second wife was still alive. And then after we divorced, and then she passed a year or so later, Evelyn and I got married.
And when did you and Evelyn get married?
In 2009.
2009. Do you have any children?
6 altogether.
And their mother was?
Okay, my first marriage and 1 son. Second marriage had a daughter. She had 2 children. That's 4. And the third marriage with Evelyn, she had 2. Okay. So I counted as 6 children. I don't count step or adopted. Right. Because they're under my roof and they're being taken care of by 2 parents.
And your first wife, her name was?
Betty.
Betty, and her maiden name?
It's Brown.
Brown? And how did you meet her?
We were at a high school dance, and she and her friend kept following me around the dance. She thought I was somebody else. She said, Donald. I said, no, my name is Skip. My nickname is Skip. And she said, oh, okay, this guy is my twin. And we nowhere related. But if you see us the 2 of us together, you can tell we thought we were brothers. And that's how I met Betty. And then a few months later.
What was her maiden name?
Betty Brown.
Oh, you told me that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. And how long did you all go together?
About a year. And then we got married at December 1966, Christmas Eve.
And you had 1 son?
Yes.
And his name?
Richard.
Richard? And what happened with Betty?
2 young people had no business being married because we were not mature enough to handle the idea of being married. And we both reconciled to that we weren't ready. And like I said, we went our separate ways after divorce. And then I met Nancy, second wife, in the Air Force. And we got married that way, and we had our daughter together. She had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Okay.
And what was Nancy's maiden name?
Taylor.
And where'd you meet her at?
I met her in the Air Force, yes, at the Blue Ash A&G station, yes.
Oh, okay.
And she was one of those kept, who is that guy? Who is that guy? And I said, nothing to me. So we got to dating and kind of found out we had a lot of stuff in common, yes.
Was she in the reserves also?
Yes. She stayed 16 years in the reserve.
And you had the one child with her,
Yes, a little girl. Her name is Kiana, Q-U-I-A-N-A.
Kiana?
Yeah, and she was the last of the third child that Nancy had. And oh goodness, if you see Kiana and my oldest son Richard, you knew they were brother and sister, you know, because you know my genes and so forth that went through it. Mm-hmm.
And so you and Tiana got divorced?
Me and Nancy got divorced.
I'm sorry, Tiana.
We were married almost 28 years.
28 years,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any other children besides Richard
No.
and Tiana?
Nope, it's only two. Natural, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what about grandchildren?
I got 7 grandchildren and 1 great child. He was born on my birthday 2 years ago. He came in at 11:53 in the evening. So Kaiser is 2 going on 50. And we share a birthday together this coming Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Which is?
The 9th of
Yes,
February.
February the 9th,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And what church do you belong to now?
First Baptist Church, West College Hill. That's over on Betts Avenue, right near North Bend.
Yeah, near where the post office is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Trinity Lutheran. Yeah.
It's Trinity and it's West College Hill Presbyterian on the one corner, Grossbeck and Hamilton.
Sure.
You can go up that way, all up in that area. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm out that way once a week too.
Mm-hmm.
I get around.
Okay.
That's what
Mm-hmm.
what that man said in the song, you know. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, you were a member of the Tuskegee Airmen
Yes.
Association.
Yes, association.
Tell me.
My age, I'm not old enough to be a Tuskegee Airman. The year 2000, I joined the Cincinnati chapter, and a gentleman by the name of Mr. Hubbard, Curtis Hubbard, was he a navigator on B-25 bombers. And the church where my one cousin was the pastor, First Baptist, asked me to speak on Veterans Day, and I did. And Curtis came up to me and said, "You need to join our organization." So year 2000, I did join the Cincinnati chapter of Tuskegee Airmen.
Now, they, of course, are to honor the original Tuskegee Airmen of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Started out as the 99th Pursuit Group,
Mm-hmm.
and then the 352nd.
Yes, 332nd, and you got the 301st, 302nd, and 100th, and the 99th made up the 332nd Fighter Group.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have any of the original Tuskegee Airmen in your group when you joined?
Yes. It was John Lindsay, John Ridgway, John Lear, Curtis Hubbard, Garfield Miller, Leslie Edwards.
Leslie, I
Mhm.
yes. Yeah.
And Leslie was our walking history book. He could hurt your feelings about the people who made other people get together to get Tuskegee Airmen together, yes. The story is told that a man by the name of Yancey Williams sued the United States government in the year 1939. President Roosevelt was going for his 3rd or 4th term, I think it was, and he wanted the African American vote to put him over the top to win that election that year. And they implemented the program in 1940 to 1941, and then Mrs. Roosevelt came down like in 1942. He took a ride with Chief Wilbert Anderson. Chief Anderson was not a Tuskegee Airman pilot, he was a trainer. But he went through a school of the civilian pilot training program that was taught by Willie Brown, Cornelius Coffey, and William Powell in Chicago. But there are various universities, African American universities like Hampton, Howard, Morgan, West Virginia State, and I believe Tuskegee. Well, Tuskegee was the other school, and Colin is teaching young men how to fly airplanes.
Right.
So when you see the movie of Lawrence Fishburne, when the gentleman took the test the second time, got some better grades the second time, and only one person got a 98, and everybody else got 100 on that test. That was very well true. And then through the quota system, there were 2,978 gentlemen who wanted to be pilots, and 992 of them made pilot status. And they said 395 went overseas. And then for each airplane, you know, there were 10 men back in World War II to take care of airplanes, you know, from the sheet metal person to the gun armorers, and the radio man, mechanics, and so forth about the airplane, yes. And they became famous when they got the P-51 airplanes, because they had an airplane to do all the stuff they wanted to do. In the documentary that I'll show, they show how the guys really enjoyed being in the P-51 because of the power and the endurance to last the whole time. And the trip, they went to Berlin the first time. They were supposed to go to an initial point, and a group from England was supposed to come over and help them take the airplanes on into Berlin. They went the rest of the way with them because they had weather problems, as Roscoe Brown would tell you. And he tells you a story how he shot down one of the first jet aircraft in combat, because the P-51 airplane is heavier than the 262. So instead of him going up and go down, he went down and under. And when he came around 90 degrees south, he had a perfect shot on that 262. Blew him out of the sky.
ME-262.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he shot down two more in that same sequence in that trip over Berlin. That was May of 1945. And they were good as far as aerial gunning was concerned, because they had so much practice doing what they were doing. They knew exactly how to do the deflection shots and then do the yo-yo. This airplane's that far away, you just down and down and come right up under him and take him out, you know. And there would have been two air aces in Tuskegee Airmen, but they would not give them credit. That was Andrew Toppins and Lee Archer. Lee Archer was given credit for 4.5 kills and not 5, because the young man was right next to him when he shot down the fifth airplane. The young man never shot any bullets out of his guns, but he shot at something, and they said, well, he's missing so many bullets, so he 4.5 kills. He actually had 6 kills. But as far as the ink is concerned, to put that in the paper, I don't know. And they stayed with the bombers, and they did not go off to be hot dogs as far as shooting down German airplanes, because they had a weave pattern across the bombers. And that's the way the Germans have sent certain amount of airplanes down, and they take care of them, and the other guys said, well, we're not getting involved in that, and they go on back, because they knew they weren't going to leave the bombers. Now, you figure 200 raids, 800 to 1,000 bombers each raid, and supposedly they lost 27 aircraft, supposedly. Now, if 4 groups are going over a target like so, and crisscrossing, and say, this one guy here gets lost, so this group going back to England, but he sees another group going to England, so he's by himself, he's easy picking for an airplane to shoot him down. And that's how they said, that's how the losses came about, because Tuskegee Airmen were over top. See?
Right.
Other guys slipping down. You're looking for the stragglers, they called it. But that's less than 1% of the bombs they had escorted were shot down. And no other group would say that.
Yeah. And they were flying a P-51C?
C and Ds.
Did they get the D model?
Yes. Mm-hmm. C has got the canopy, it opens up like so on the side. That's hard to escape if you get shot down. And the D is a bubble canopy that'll pop off the stick and then release it, you know.
And they got the Ds late though, didn't they?
They got some Ds after they had Cs for a minute.
Yeah.
And then some guys said, well, you want to fly this one, you fly that one, you going to fly the other one, you know. Some guys were more comfortable in the Cs than they were in the Ds.
And they called them the red tails?
Mm-hmm. That is very significant if you are coming to an initial point to take bombers into a target. You see specks coming toward them, the bomber gunners, if they didn't know what they were going to shoot at you. But they saw the red tail, where you can see 5 miles away. Okay, we know who they are. Then come on in, they made radio contact.
And they were flying out of Foggia?
Yeah. No, they flew out of Ramitelli.
Ramitelli?
Mm-hmm.
Right
Which
near,
is north of Foggia.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ramitelli.
You know, the story is told that 17 got in trouble, and he landed at Ramitelli. The captain was from Texas, plane, and he was a pilot rather. He would not get out of the airplane, so it got cold. He said, I better go see what these guys. In fact, he went in, the other crew members, and the guys was playing cards, drinking wine, shooting craps or whatever, having a good time, having swapping stories about flying and everything. And find out he got closer to the guys, and he was the one in the movie with Lawrence Fishburne, said when he went back over at target, he wanted Tuskegee Airmen to escort him over to the target. Because he said he knew people, he knew, no, you don't know everybody.
I think there were, 12 or 13 Tuskegee Airmen that were captured by the Germans.
32.
How many?
32.
32.
Mm-hmm. And you see, there were some that were shot down that landed in Yugoslavia and worked for what they call them,
Well, the guerrillas and underground.
guerrillas, and that, and they got back to Ramitelli, okay, and they flew again. 66 lost their lives. I know my count says they were going to give out 8 Purple Hearts, but they had to add 66 more to that 8. Plus the guys got hurt on the accidents on the ground. When you're in a war zone and you're a mechanic, say something falls on you, get killed that way, that's a loss. That's a Purple Heart right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess what I meant to say was that it's either 11 or 13 where it's Stalag Luft 3.
Yeah.
Where the Great Escape took place.
Mm-hmm.
They were all in South Camp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, when they went to the prison camps, they were addressed as their rank. Whereas when they got back home, hey boy, or the nurses, hey girl. So their enemies recognized their ranks more so than by Americans did when they got back home. And I know, John ever tell you the story about when they went through Memphis, Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay, that's true.
A couple of stories about Memphis, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
One was at the bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, horrible stories, horrible stories.
And people just didn't believe it because they weren't taught any different.
Yeah.
If our America would have taught people the truth, I wonder where America would be today.
Yeah. He also, John Lear was a first lieutenant, and a good personal friend of mine. He also told a story about the deputy sheriff that pulled him over when they were driving back to Tuskegee from visiting some friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know that story?
I don't know that one. I didn't got to hear that one.
Kind of, it's an off-color story, but a true story.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled him over, and they were dressed in their military uniforms, and the sheriff said something to them, and they answered him back, like they should. And one thing led to another, and the sheriff stuck the .38 up to John Lear's temple and told him, and called him the N-word, and said, if you say one more word, I'm going to blow your brains out. Terrible. John went through a lot. John went through more episodes of getting killed, or nearly getting killed, or maimed in the United States than he did overseas. And he actually flew 155 missions.
Okay.
But his record will only show about 120, if I remember correctly, because he said, there was so much prejudice about
number of missions, and if they asked to be for replacements, they would not send them. But if a young man shot down 3 to 4 airplanes, they sent him back to Tuskegee and still wouldn't get a replacement. The other guys came back, flew double. And it's sad that, you had qualified pilots to come out and fly the airplane, and you wouldn't let them fly the airplane.
There's a second batch of the Tuskegee Airmen that we don't hear much about, and that was, and you'll have to tell me what the nomenclature was. It was the 440.
447th. Those are the B-25 pilots and crew.
Right.
And they kept sending them from base to base to base to base to base, and they run a cycle. From Godman Field to Seymour to Michigan to South Carolina to Godman Field to Seymour to Michigan, South Carolina. To keep them deterred from flying in, airplane very good. Okay, you're going here, you're going there. The mutiny, which a lot of people don't understand, and a young man by the name of Colonel Solway did not like black people at all. And he thought they were not worthy enough to go into an officer club with the rank on the shoulder. And 104 gentlemen wanted to go in their officer club and just have a beer, a drink, or whatever, a sandwich, and then relax the rest of the evening. And 103 were exonerated, but one young man, because he brushed the sergeant going into the O Club, he got discharged, dishonorably discharged. It was to President Clinton gave his back his rank and everything that he get exonerated. That was Lieutenant Terry.
Who?
Lieutenant Terry, T-E-R-R.
What base was that on?
That was Seymour, Indiana. Now, if you go to Seymour, Indiana right now, a young man who was an Eagle Scout built a memorial for the mutiny at Seymour Field, okay? And they're trying to get a statue. He's working to get a statue. Now, he's an Eagle Scout. He's trying to get a statue erected in the same area. And it's amazing, so many, 60, 70 years after someone does something, that you would recognize them. That's sad. And it hasn't been just the one thing. If both sides, that people have done something during the war, and people won't recognize them until 80, well, I'll say 65 years or something later. And why? It's a piece of metal, It's not as big as this thing here, but it's a piece of metal. And it looks nice on your dress uniform, and people would ask you what those medals mean, and you tell them that. And how did you earn that medal? You tell them that. But then again, when they said, weren't you at this battle, that battle? Yeah, so how come you didn't get what the other people got, I wear a hat that says Desert Storm, recognized as a storm every time, Air Force veteran, Desert Storm veteran. Well, what did you do? And I told what I told you about what he, my goodness, you didn't get to go overseas. I had to, but I was flying, dropping fuel off and come back. He said, how does that make you a part? I said, because you're adding to the effort.
Sure.
That the guys go do their job and come back. And I have to tell you this story. 2 stealth fighters came into Homestead, like the Tuesday after Desert Storm had started. They were going overseas to join the rest of the guys. And I was sitting in the cockpit of one airplane, and it was being refueled, watching the fuel gauges. And this 2-star general came up, these base commanders, came up wanting to see the airplane. And they would not let him see the airplane because he didn't have a need to know. He said, what is that man doing in the cockpit? And the second lieutenant said, sir, he's doing his job. So later on the evening, I go back to the fuel depot. I'm sitting there just enjoying a little TV before the next airplane comes to be serviced. Sergeant Finley, you're one on the phone. General, base commander wants to talk to you. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. How you doing, sir? Fine. What were you doing in the airplane? Sir, do you have a need to know? He said, no, I just want to know what you were doing. Sir, I was doing my Air Force job. I said, that's what I'm supposed to tell you at times like this. We were in a conflict against Iraq. And I said, I can't tell you any more than that. And he thanked me for it. And I got a letter from him at home to thank you for staying that course of your military code of uniform justice. You cannot, reveal, even though he had been 9-star general, I couldn't tell him. He did not have a need to know. And I was so scared, my heart was
Sure.
Let's go. And he said, well, you did your job. And then it wasn't I say about 9 months later, I came down to the 482nd ORI and helped them pass the ORI. Because, you know, what I knew from doing ORIs and everything. And another letter from the general for doing that, you know. He said, unselfishly, you did your job. I said, sir, that's what I'm in here for.
What does ORI mean for people?
Operational Readiness Inspection. In other words, if you are ready to go to an operation or go to a field of battle, and you are tested by this, it shows that you should be able to go to that field of battle and do the said job you were given. I mean, it's not only refueling airplanes, it's helping load the airplanes, help airplanes get off the ground safely. And they watch all your safety, because, you know, when we were refuel an airplane, we ground the airplane, we ground our truck to the airplane and ground our truck to the ground. That's a three-way ground, so if anything happened, you wouldn't, have a spark. At the time, JP4 would ignite at 82.7 degrees Fahrenheit. You could snap your finger like that, get like something silk on there, that's enough spark to start that stuff on, catch a fire. So we had to answer questions like that, you know, and how many gallons per minute are you putting through a 2.5-inch hole? You tell them 600 RPMs. And how many gallons did the airplane take? You say usually 1,600 or less, you know, filled up. And then what type of fuel using? JP4. Why? Because that's the recommended of the 125-0076 operational package. And he said, what is your maintenance? It's 13675- whatever 001 for maintenance thereof that airplane or that vehicle. You know? And he look at you like this, and you know, yes, we got to know all this. I guess I had to go get a manual to fix something. I got a manual for the operation. You go to that said manual, and it shows you how to do the operation. And that was my job, you know, teach that. You know. I enjoyed that. Yes, I did, very much so. I enjoyed doing that. You know, it wasn't being the, as they say, the brainiac in the group. No, I'm share that with everybody else. And you can be, if I'm gonna be a brainiac, you can be one too. You know, come on, let's do this. You know. Made things easy, you know.
It takes a whole level of people to operate an airplane and have successful missions.
There you go. Now you realize in World War II it took 10 men or women to get an airplane together. Now it's like 4. Because everybody's overlapping their career fields to help somebody get something together. Can you imagine somebody bringing an F-22 into a base and you got to go out and service that airplane? You know what exactly to put on the airplane and why? You know.
Yeah.
That was what I do.
Yeah.
See, the one thing you did not ask me. You know, I'm a minister at First Baptist Church, West College Hill. In the year 2011, January 24th, I was ordained as a Baptist minister.
No, I wasn't aware of that. And I wouldn't have gone there. I'm glad you brought that up.
And that was the most exciting part of my life. And I got to the one last question. What's the difference between a deacon and a minister? I couldn't get the word called and appointed out of my mouth to save my life, but I explained the offices. And the gentleman said, stop, stop, stop. You know what's going on. Remember the word called, the minister is called, and a deacon is appointed in the Baptist church. And that is something that I ran from for a long time until one day, as people think it's strange, you would hear from him, but you do. And I did hear from him. And I've been happier ever since.
You were called.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's in different ways, something happens in your life and you're there to help it go through. Or something would happen to you and you get through it. And you know it wasn't you, and you know it wasn't nobody next to you.
Well, the other part we haven't discussed about your life, Sam, is you're working at a high school now?
Yes.
What are you doing there?
I am a mentor and a volunteer. And I'll use one instance to tell you the reason why I do that. a lot of the kids that go to North Carolina High School are single parent families. There's no male role model to tell them different things about life. When you sit down with a young man or a young lady and tell them this is how things should be and how you should go through things, that's part of your ministry that you do from church. Another one is the fact that because this child has asked a question, I'm not going to push him or her away because you're not my child. No, you asked a question how to get through different things. It's my job to explain as best I can. And if you need any more questions, ask, come back and we'll discuss that same thing. And like I said, over the years, there's been a number of children that come through North Carolina High School. And you don't look for a thank you or nothing, but they'll say thank you. A lot of times I'll go to Perkins in North Carolina and be eating breakfast. And where's my bill? And I said that couple over here took your bill, said no, they're going to pay for your bill. And it's something that you don't add up, but you add to the fact that you were there to tell them something good that would happen in their lifetime, and they get to go on, you know. A lot of them is, I always use the stepping method. If it takes two people to argue, and one walks away has got sense, then the ones left there, like talking about, stuck and go and sinking and go instead of getting up out of there and go on and come back and reconcile them. And then you find out have a whole lot to come. That's what I'm here to do, to help that reconciliation. Sure, sometimes I need it too. But as our home is right now, if we have a disagreement, we settle it as best we can. And when it's time to go to sleep, go to the same bedroom. Or you might have our backs turned to one another, and next morning we made up. And that's our accomplishment that we make up. You know, I'm not going to say, my wife did so and I'll call you and tell no, you can't do it, my wife. You discuss that with the person right there. You know, that makes a whole lot of difference. And believe it or not, there's been a lot of young men who want to be heroes, I'll say, or the big cat on the dock. And then we find out and they say, no, you can do better than that. And they come back and say, yeah, you're right. You know, yeah. So that's me. Mm-hmm.
Brian, do you have any questions?
Couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Your parents were from Tennessee?
Yes.
Did they get married in Tennessee?
They got married in Cincinnati in 1934.
So did your dad come here because of to build the train station?
No, they came up here on a idea to be better than living in the country. And Cincinnati was the biggest city. They thought, you know, they could come and make things better.
Did they know anybody coming here, or was it just a closer, bigger city to go to?
It's a bigger city to go to, and they wanted to try Cincinnati and see what would happen. And the rest is history. They really, because my dad is well known as out in the valleys, I call it. And he was how I get my thing of, you know, seeing people as equal, you know, and keep on going. Yes.
So when your dad was working on that project, that was the early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
He was living
In the West End. Mm-hmm.
But eventually he moved up to the Wyoming area.
Yes.
And, you know, in this area, you always hear about the West End with African Americans,
Mm-hmm.
Lincoln Heights, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear a lot about
Wyoming.
What was the community like for African Americans in that area?
Well, in one section of Wyoming, which is near Mill Creek and the railroad, from, let's see, Worthington Avenue to the Chestnut Street to Springfield Pike was where black people lived. You know, there's Crosley and Oak Street. That's where a lot of the families lived together. And a lot of them worked over in Laughlin, Ohio, where Philip Carey, Gardner, Fox Paper, other companies were there. And some worked at Wright's, which became GE. So that's where you get the community.
What were some of those other companies? What kind of I know about Wright because
Okay, there's Philip Carey built building materials, roofing shingles, roofing tar paper. They was strong on asbestos siding and all that kind of stuff back in the day. If you remember the Valley Homes, that's how they built Valley Homes, the clapboard shingles on the side of the house. Fox Paper Company, boxes. Gardner was boxes, and then what was another company? Stearns and Foster built the mattresses for bed. Yeah, a lot of people work at Stearns and Foster, and they were getting goodness. Some got the minimum wage, and some got it was a big thing back in the 1960s to make $3 an hour, and they raised how many families in Lincoln Heights, Lockland, Woodlawn, Glendale, Wyoming, Hartwell, and some came from downtown, some came from Avondale, some came from Evanston. The people back in those days raised families. My dad built a house next door on 1129 Burns Avenue for about $20,000. You could do that today, build a home for $20,000. Well, that was big money back in those days. He paid $190 a month mortgage. Can you imagine somebody paying that much for mortgage today?
Do you know when they moved into that?
Yeah, we moved in the house in 1956. My dad started in 1955, and he was working for Kaiser Steel Company. They were building parts of Armco Steel. And tell you a story about him. All right, Reading Concrete was over off of Galbraith Road when you were over the hill down over the railroad tracks. Mm-hmm. And the guys would come back from the project, and they have a half a truck of concrete or a quarter truck of concrete. So Dad got talking to one of the guys, said, "Why don't you stop by and building the house?" Said, "Oh, I got this thing for you." So he come back with a half a truck of concrete. He poured one section, it was a basement at a time. He had 3 sections. He poured the first section where he put the furnace in the house. So the plaster inside would cure and become hard, and and that's how he did that. And back in those days, it was nothing but a concrete truck be going down those side streets, like he'd go and deliver a load, and myself and my couple of buddies, we had made a couple dollars a piece on concrete, dump it out in the basement, and Dad would finish it. Yes, that's how he did that.
So before you guys had moved there, where did you live in the West End or something?
My first recollection of a house, I was a baby when I was in the West End. We moved out to 89 Chestnut Street. If you follow Burns Avenue and goes around the curve, in that area, and the house is on that corner, that was Chestnut Street. And Burns Avenue started out at the edge of the property line, went south into Hartwell. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did your family continue to live in that area even
yes.
when they got older?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Dad died in 1968, Mom died in 1997. Mm-hmm. That's where they lived, yes. Wow.
And when you were living in that area, were there areas that you didn't feel welcome to go into?
Certain parts of Wyoming.
There's different parts
Yeah.
around there, different
Yes.
towns.
Now, as high school students, we went to see our buddies, our fellow students, wherever they lived. There were a few people who would have you sit on the back porch, per se. Some would invite you in the house for dinner, which was a good thing. And vice versa, when they come to the house, Mom picks dinner for everybody. And then after the 60s, after good football team, everybody started branching out all over the city of Wyoming, yes. But it found to be a good thing. A funny thing happened in 1957. The school board in Wyoming was about ready to erase all the records from Oak Avenue Elementary School, where I went in my first 6 years of school. And somebody said, "No, that's historical valley." And sure enough, a lot of people, prominent people in Cincinnati, went through that little school in the city of Cincinnati. And that's amazing. Now you can go out to this. I think they're open on Tuesdays. You can go in and find records of you. I got some of my high school and grade school pictures. And that's the Historical Society, yes.
And that's the Wyoming?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the lady was glad that I met, was glad to show. She said, "There you are right there, that's you." I said, "Yep, that's me," in 2nd and 3rd grade or whatever, She found a picture for. I had 1st and 2nd grade, 3rd and 4th grade, and 5th and 6th grade. She says, "Yeah, my goodness, there you are." And then when I was 10th grade, it was our reserve team was the champion. She said, "There you are again." I said, "Yes." Mm-hmm.
I was curious, did you ever go anything like the movie theaters in that area?
We had, there was the Roxy Theater over in Lockland, and that was over in the black section of Blockland. But we went down in Hartwell. It was another theater. We all went there. Everybody went there. Yeah.
What was that called?
No, can't recall.
Was it the Vogue, or was it?
There you go. There you go.
I was told by other people that there were, the woman used to give out prizes on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that was so much fun. It was like 35 cents to get in, 25 cents on during the week, and Saturday was a matinee, 35 cents. Mm-hmm. And back then, we used to make our money with the soda pop bottles and the beer bottles. The quart bottles, you got 4 cents a piece when you turn them back in, and the pop bottles were 2 cents.
Right.
So you figure you get a bunch of those bottles, turn them into a local Kroger store or whatever, you get redeemed. They give you cash money right then and there, bring them back in, you know.
I think you mentioned, did your dad, did he serve in World War II?
Yes.
What was his military experience?
He went after Normandy, went to the Battle of Bulls, and everything in the artillery unit. I'm not sure what the number of the artillery unit. He was in 105 howitzers, and they went to Berlin, and when they Berlin, they went to Auschwitz, and they helped liberate the soldiers at Auschwitz, and they came back. And Dad very seldom talked about what he did during World War II, but I do know he was in the artillery unit, and he served under Patton. So, yeah, I know that part of him. And it's amazing, like I say, the induction center, you see the yellow building when you go in the parking lot of Union Terminal, sits off to the right when you go in, that was the induction center back then. And then when you right next to the train station, they marched everybody over to the train station, and then you go to, Dad's basic thing was down in Georgia, down at Fort Benning, Georgia. That's where the artillery school was. So he was there, and he went overseas, and, you know, and like I said, when they came back home from overseas, he got the rude awakening. And he was a Lance Corporal, you know. So it's amazing. He was a part of that one train ride where one of the train rides where the German soldiers that got on the train and took the seats of the African American soldiers. They had to go to the rear car, or the car right behind the engine. Yeah. Because all the cylinders and smoke came up in that first car. So that was health-wise, you know.
Now, in the mid-60s, you were trying to get into the military, or were you
what happened? They had a draft going on, and when I started messing up in school, I'll say it like that, and start keeping my grades like I should, I went home, and that's when I got my notice, because they watch your situation when you're in college. If you stayed in college, they didn't bother you. And that's everything's on. And a lot of people that graduate 64, 65, on the 67, a lot of them didn't get notices, but some did when they graduated. So they didn't have a job right away, they got notices, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, did you know at that time, like 66 or so, would you have gone into the Air Force? Did you know?
When I went down to Federal Building, Marines or Army, no questions asked. And like I said, half would go to the Marines, half goes to the Army. That's if you got drafted. If you, before you got sent away, went to the Air Force or Navy, then you could serve that way. That was a rule, you know. And most go, oh man, I gotta go to the Army. And then the knuckleheads that came down ate soap before they got there. Oh goodness, they kept overnight in a motel right in town. The next morning, they went off. They didn't wait any time on them. They sent them right away. I remember this one kid who was built like a daggone tank, and he flunked something, and this, oh man, you RB soap, huh? They already knew the chemical compound of that. He had a half bar RB soap, and he was sick as all know what when he came in. He said, okay, well, go over there. He said, oh man, get ready to get out of here. And they sent him over to the motel. The next morning, I heard he went down to, what's that one in North Carolina for the Marines?
Parris Island.
Yes, where he went. Mm-hmm.
So, how did you hurt your knee? Was it a football injury?
No, it was a basketball game. It was, I went up for a rebound. I fell on the floor and, okay, I'm okay. And got back to my room and at the dorm and started hurting. And started, the knees swelled up like this. And they said, I wore a cast 6 weeks, and I went home after then after school, and they didn't know about that part. So when when the induction center, they took X-rays, said, and showed the crack was just right through here, and that went on to I got a ruptured patella in the service, and I was overshooting with Air Force Base for a tech school. And the young man said, 15 to 20 years after I put this back, you're going to have your first knee replaced. 2002, 2003, then 2016, this one got replaced again. But even though I was in the reserves during this period of time, they said, okay, you're fine.
So you mentioned that you went into the Air Force in '75 because of a vet.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit about that story?
James Elburn Geyer was we were called Mechanic 1s at CG&E. I was a Mechanic 3 operator. I operated the equipment. He knows how strong I was and different things. He said, oh man, I bet you $100 you couldn't go into service. So he took me out to where he was part of 123rd TCF out at Blue Ash, and he said, okay, this man think he can do all this stuff. So I took the oath to office, went down to the induction center, took the physical. January 4th, away I go down to the Happy Valley, which is Lackland Air Force Base. And 7 weeks later, I was on my way to Boxing, Mississippi Tech School. And that rest is history. I came back home in May of '76. I saw a guy, I said, where's my $100? He said, oh man, that is right. So I won $100 for going in, And in fact, I had the audacity to finish 4th in that 1.5 mile run with full equipment on. You run, 6 times around the track, and I finished 4th. And they sent that record back to him saying, well, yeah, this guy's good, pretty good shape, And I watched kids that were 18, 17, 20, couldn't cut it. I mean, crybabies. There was one that wet the bed every night on purpose. He did it on purpose. They dried him out and kept him in. There was those who were drug-ridden and some were alcoholics that couldn't handle it. And I know one kid went crazy, and we had to grab him and take him over to the, Wilford Hall, over at, not Wright-Patterson, over at, what kind of hall was that? It's at the mental health center at Lackland Air Force Base. We had to literally hold that kid.
Well, in the 70s, you had a lot of dope going on.
And someone thought they could get in. Some were given choices in their home city to go to service or go to jail. So they thought the Air Force would be so easy. And I love my first DI I had. He was, what'd you come in here for? What'd you come to my Air Force for? I look at this guy, I said, okay, this guy's serious about what's going on here. So he told me, you're too old to be, I went in at age, I was 29 when I went in. He said, you were too old to come in here. I said, you want to go out here and wrestle? So we arm wrestle. Okay. Pretty strong guy. So then another guy come in and says, we watched him walking in the room. He said, what the F are you looking at? And I said, okay. Focus straight ahead. And then we went to our barracks, had our bags in our hand. We stood there with our bags in our hand. They already told me to take the lightest amount of clothes. Don't take books or nothing. Just take the lightest amount of stuff with you. And I remember that, a little bag about like this, And the kids come with and one guy came in with 3 bags, had me stand with those bags in like this. I felt sorry for him. And from there, went up to our beds and slept all night. Everybody got a good night's sleep. 3:30 in the morning, here he come back, bang, bang, bang. Get up, let's go. Dude, when I did formation walking, our first week we were there, and we go to bed, and then the C-130s would come doing their touch and goes over at Randolph Field. They come right over top the barracks, you couldn't sleep. So get up at 4:30, chow hall by 5, come back, do your cleanup, the hospital corners, put your stuff in the drawers. You had to put 2 drawers in the area for your uniform. Make sure they were in line. And one day, old Sergeant Adams come in. He said, "You guys did pretty good." He would grab 2 ranks. Do it again. Do it again. Everybody, he said, we were scared. What's going on here, you know? And so he let us alone, and then went outside, did some more formation marching. You remember the signs they had on the walkways? It was somebody with a brass on their shoulder. You salute that sign, and you go. If when somebody's enlisted, you go right past it. They put a bunch of signs up, and you made everybody go by these signs. You would salute, who wouldn't, you know.
No, I don't.
Oh, that was new, maybe, well, probably when I went through.
Yeah.
They would deliberately take you over to where the ladies were to see what idiot would want to try to talk one of the ladies instead of keeping his mind on what he was doing. And if he would do that, a young lady would be a staff sergeant or a tech sergeant or whatever, and she'd go upside this guy and down the other side, and you don't laugh, don't laugh, don't laugh. He said, okay. And then cigarette butt duty.
Mm-hmm.
We had that.
Everybody always had that, yeah.
He went through a field about big as this and make sure everything was picked up. While you were picking up stuff, another sergeant come behind and dropping stuff behind you. You didn't pick that stuff up. Yes, sir, I did. Nope. Go back and get it. Well, you going that way, and no one come around this way, he dropped stuff. So that went on for about 2 hours, you know. And we were good and tired after that one. And we had one of the better records, picking up cigarette butts and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't with a poke. You took your hands and put them in a bag, you know. So your hands were good and juicy and all that kind of stuff. By the time you got through, and you washed everything down, you know. And they watched the guys who wouldn't take showers. That was a blanket party. You ever heard about a blanket party? Well, that's a young man, he got a smart mouth, he don't wash. He would go to bed and he'd wake up certain one of us, he'd beat the crap out of it. Go take a shower and take a brush, long-handled brush, and make him wash himself and get deodorant. I said, we don't have that stuff in here. And then somebody, one country kid come in, didn't know how to brush and all that kind of, didn't brush his teeth and it was, And after a while, everybody got the idea what was going on. Everybody had sharp uniforms, crease uniforms, and talking about the joke of coming up to the door and somebody taking driver's license and trying to get in your barracks. We had a colonel and a major would come up to the door in a little small window, dorm guards, as they were called. He said, "Sir, may I help you?" He says, "Yeah, my name is Major so-and-so, and he's got his driver's license." And this kid looked at him, read him in the room. That was chaos. He said, nope. He called the sergeant out from home to come up to the barracks, and he would have a ball. He did this one time. One little kid, his name was LaForce. He was from Wisconsin. He didn't know what his military ID card looked like. And we tried to tell him, say, you look on the corners and say, there's shine on one side of the corners, and you know it's a military ID, and they're green in color. A driver's license from Texas, some of those were green. So he mistook that for a military ID. Oh, and the sergeant came in, everybody was sleeping, snoring, carrying everybody, you gave him a good time. Get him up, get him up. Everybody jumped up out of the bed and stood at attention by their bed, and who told you to let that guy in here? Another thing, he was a civilian coming in here trying to, how would you get that that's all we heard for about an hour. And 4:45, he, get back in the bed. At 5 o'clock, get him up, get him up. He played that game for about an hour. Oh, so goodness. So you good and sweaty. So we couldn't take a shower to go chow. So we had to come back after the chow, take a shower, and then change uniforms. And so all kind of little head game stuff, you know. But when it came down to taking the tests and doing the military stuff, like I say, we came in an honor flight, which is good. Felt good to be in an honor flight, you know. And all of us left with the two little ribbons on their chest, thought there was something. Or one little ribbon for basic training. You got reserve training medal and your active duty training medal. And we thought we were something, the two little things on our chest, right by our name tag, you know. You see sergeant walk by shaking their heads and laughing and carrying on. It was fun, I'm telling you, yes.
Well, you came in like near pretty much the end of the Vietnam War. So when you were in the Air Force in that, you know, the 70s and 80s, what did you feel like everybody was preparing for, I guess, with the Soviets or something?
Yes, Cold War. We got a medal for Cold War, and we did some alerts in Alaska. The Russians had a derivative of C-47 twin-engine airplane, and he deliberately fly over the Bering Strait and fly and see how good our radars were. And we picked him up soon he took off. So he came across there, and we sent some, at the time we had F-4s, send F-4s after him, turn around and go back. And they send Russian bears down through the strait to see if who would come up and get after them. And then they would send their fighters up behind us, and by the time they would send fighters up against our guys, we had guys underneath that come up to meet them. These are close encounters, very close encounters. The year 1989, our reserve unit, 906, was the first reserve unit to intercept Russian bears in the North Atlantic above Iceland. And they looked at the airplanes and said, "Where's D.O. from?" They said, "Dayton, Ohio." And the guys in the airplane said, "That's where the museum is." And that was, you know, thought that was cool that happened. And got to take a P3 flight in the middle of the week, go above the Arctic Circle, turn around and come back. I thought that was nice. And we got Blue Nose going up top the Arctic Circle. We watched the sun until 1:15 in the Western Hemisphere, and we turned around and came back. It came up at 2:15 before we came south from that part of the Atlantic. That was real nice. Got to see how big our Oscar submarine was.
The what?
Oscar submarine. I can see the Hunt for Red October. We got to see one of those from a P3 down 500 feet above the water. And it is huge.
What's a P3?
That's the Navy version of a sonar detector aircraft. And it drops sonar buoys, you know, so many places in the North Atlantic. They can check
Right.
the Russian submarines coming. And it's like an Electra aircraft, a civilian aircraft, the Electra 4 turboprops, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. And it had a big stinger out the back of the tail, had a big radar dome underneath the aircraft. And you can sit there on a radar scope and detect all kinds of stuff to better than 3,000 feet above down in the water. But that was a fun flight, you know. Iceland was cool because there were underground glaciers. There was an underground volcano you can go see. And the Icelandic people had steam heat because of the underground glaciers. They paid nothing for their heat. And sheep run rampant above out in the area. And there's a lot of wool product stuff over there. Stuff was expensive there. In 1989, a hamburger, fries, and a Coke was $8.90. Well, you paid like $2 something here back at the time. Got to see the Northern Lights quite a bit there. We ran alerts quite a bit, you know, to F4s, because that 15 stood down there. Everybody said, "Oh, man, everything's still good," you know. So, I just had fun. I just enjoyed the Air Force. I really, you know, really enjoyed what was going on, and if I could go back, I would.
You know, Desert Storm that you were part of.
Mm-hmm.
But were you part of anything with Desert Shield, which was right before then? Were you
No.
called up for anything during Desert Shield?
We were told about that, told to get our bags ready, and we never did get to go there. But I said, Desert Storm, we were active duty. We were there at Homestead, and you know, airplanes came in, they went over to across the Atlantic to go and, be a part of that,
Well, this is kind of a broad question. I don't know if you even have an answer for it, but how would you feel things for like aircraft or procedures? How were they different when you went in 75 to say your jet didn't storm in 91?
A big difference. In 75, it was, you go here and fly there and we'll get you back. In Desert Storm, it was all digitalized and computerized. We were working with the satellite things at the time, and we would rely on them to show what was going on. And be surprised what satellites can see, And back in the day, it was all by eyeball, and go out and see what's going on out there. And then if you need somebody, send somebody else out. It was our radar system back then was the old strobe. There's 16 strobes in the radar, and the digital radar hits the satellite and comes down and pinpoints right where you are. When you see the little drones are flying in the area and see the stuff going across, that's the difference. We didn't have that back in the 70s, none of that at all. You see anything, nothing yet. Next thing you know, somebody's firing at you, and then somebody behind you would see it, but instead of seeing before you got there, you knew where to drop your stuff.
What about like aircraft? What kind of new aircraft was there in say 91 as opposed to 75?
75 with all F4s, F-105s, F-111s. F-111 is the most modern airplane doing the 70s, and then we got the F-16s and the F-15s. That was beautiful to get those airplanes. The F-22s, F-14s, the Navy had. F-18s that were just being brought into the sequence. That was, the airplane flies itself. It's like a 16, you get it off the ground, hit the computer, and it takes you where you want to go and drop your stuff and come back. And back in the old days, you drop your stuff and come back up. And do you see me on the radar? Yeah, come on back, fly this direction and get you out of there. It's a big difference.
Did they have to do with it being in the desert? Were there different procedures or something with the aircraft or anything with sand or anything?
Sandstorm would mess up the F-4 radar, and the F-105 is really tremendous because you can see a thing. But now, okay, here it comes. The signature, heat signatures to get off a body. Oh, he's right there, and drop it. They had Sky Spot during Vietnam, and you fly above the clouds and you drop your bombs blindly through a spot, and, through the clouds. They did pretty good, but it wouldn't hit the target very well, like it can do now, Like I said, the drones and the satellites, goodness, can't escape those.
No.
Well, that's all my questions.
Okay.
Well, Sergeant Finley, we've reached the end of our interview, but I want to take this time to thank you for letting us have this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the service to our country.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a mentor to all the young men in high school and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll thank him.
Yes.